Okay, Fernand, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, René. So, hi everyone. Good to see you back from last week. Although I must say I'm not sure if everybody was here last week. So, any new faces for me? Yes, Tim. We didn't meet last week.
No, unfortunately, couldn't make it last week because I was busy with board preparation. And by the way, also industry space station preparation. My slides were there, but not me.
Okay. Well, that's a good excuse. A good compensation.
Okay.
Nice. Good.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you.
Nice. Pleasure meeting you. And who else? I think everybody else was there. Johan?
Yes, I'm sorry, I could not attend last week. I was in a TB board. Yes. So my name is Johan Torres, and I work for Estec, and I also had the opportunity to meet René in the industrial space days.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, thank you. And yeah, so maybe a quick introduction and then also maybe a quick introduction from your side. I'll be one of the facilitators of the session later on in Rotterdam. I'll be hosting or facilitating the first day, really working with you on your impact projects, and also the third day, that Wednesday, before you will go and do the final presentation. I will host a session on that Wednesday afternoon about storytelling, pitching, and really working on your projects. So it's going to be really workshop style sessions that we will have together. And yeah, in these webinars last week, this week, I'd like to kick off that journey together. So maybe just to get it going, I've met the others last week, and maybe quickly Tim and also Jan. You can maybe quickly introduce yourselves also with a quick update on your particular projects as you see it.
Yeah, so yeah, pleasure. So Tim Flora had space debris office at ESA, dealing with all sorts of debris-related problems and also technology development, but also in charge of operational collision avoidance. And this links to my impact project in particular, where I foresee the aggregation of different market available services into a common picture as a service to our customers then. This is a very dynamic environment. So a few things that I had already foreseen are taken over by events. So, I mean, more companies are now offering services. So I actually have the pleasure of already trying out some services. So I need a bit increase the maturity of my presentation of some new things that I learned. So market is developing faster than anticipated. It's actually a good thing, but also tells me that I have to move. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Tim. Johan, for you?
Yes, so I would like to work on an impact project around the business in the market of micro launchers in Europe. So, and it's quite interesting market because it will be in the next years quite decisive in terms of competition in Europe or in the wide world also. And I would like to maybe work on a different axis for orienting this quite competitive landscape we have here in Europe in a cooperation modules to let more chance to that ecosystem in Europe to be able to survive and to be more competitive in the future.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, then I think with that said, let's dive in and maybe allow me myself to hi Sam, to maybe have a quick recap, just a few minutes of last week, really coming down to the point. And then what I would like to do is have, I think, a very small breakout where in small groups, 3-4 people, you will have the chance for like say 20 minutes to discuss your work so far based on the tool that we've introduced last week. And if you haven't been able to do it, that's no problem. Then it's just maybe an opportunity to talk to somebody who actually did do that small prep work. And then on the go, you can learn about the tool and about how to apply it. Okay, but I will do that instruction in a second. First, I will just share with me a few slides. Share with you. Okay, there we go. I think this is the full screen mode. Yep, there we go. So if all's well, this is now visible to you. If I really try to come to the point, then this is the model that I've shared with you last week that not everybody has seen. But this is the very generic, basic logic of entrepreneurship, of value creation, maybe, of problem solving, maybe, that I've shared last week. So I consider all of you with your impact projects to be in a search mode. You're not executing it on the right-hand side. You haven't implemented it yet. It's not operational. It's not functional. So in that sense, also, it doesn't take huge investments at the moment to actually build and launch and operate whatever the solution is that you're thinking of. The vision hasn't materialized, so to speak. But there's a lot of uncertainty. You have maybe some ideas, and maybe you have a lot of convictions that it will be successful or promising, but there's a lot of uncertainty. So as far as I'm concerned, you're all in the modus of searching, of reducing uncertainty by taking small steps, by talking to people, going to conferences, meeting people, influencing people, building your network, getting sponsors, getting maybe some first funding or a subsidy or whatever. But this is all part of a learning trajectory that's not linear, but very much iterative, as you can see on the left-hand side. And step by step, you reduce uncertainty. Maybe sometimes having to go back to the drawing board, but then gradually, even though there's not 100% certainty, and let's hope you all reach a point where you have sufficient confidence that it's time to take the jump, to start and execute and implement. Yeah, you're all on the left-hand side, as far as I'm concerned, with your impact projects. Even though maybe you're not starting a company or that's not your primary objective, we kind of have that perspective on your project, okay? And if I want to make it a little bit more conceptual, then the way to kind of establish focus in this search process, in this chaotic, iterative, seemingly random process, is that the early stage is focusing on what we call desirability. So it's really considering, who are the stakeholders, what are their issues, what are their needs, what do they find attractive or not, what could be good solutions for them on paper at least. And then gradually, as that's becoming more and more clear and validated, so to speak, then more and more the focus shifts to whatever the solution is, to establish and reduce uncertainty about feasibility, so that your solution can actually materialize, can be built, can be prototyped, there's a proof of concept, and gradually, so to speak, the TRL increases. And then maybe more and more, as things become more serious, more proven, there has to be more and more certainty about the business case, so that there's also, given the benefits, maybe the environmental benefits, the social impact, does it somehow balance with the cost involved, the operational cost, maybe the one-off investment cost, I don't know, but at least the business case has to be more and more certain as well. And then, of course, as we proceed, then at some point it's more about scaling. It's about getting some proof that it can scale, it will make impact, and have a sustainability effort impact. So this is kind of how the focus shifts during that journey. Okay. If there are any questions, then just let me know, speak up, raise your hand, or put something in the chat. But this was the model that we've introduced last week. Make sense, Tim and Johan? Yes? Okay.
Definitively, yes.
Okay, great. Oh, does it also feel like that you're in this chaotic process, or does it all feel very smooth and linear to you, Johan?
It only feels like the left part.
Okay, well then thank God. Otherwise, it would be really alarming, because then I guess you
Yes.
you would maybe miss a couple of things going on. Yeah. Okay. So then hopefully this also gives you some perspective, Johan. And how about for you, Tim?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I have to admit, I'm already a bit more the feasibility area of trying a few things, because desirability is out of scope. And as I said quickly, I'm seeing that some glimpse of viability are coming right around. The uncertainty is shrinking. I can confirm that this works that way.
Yeah. Okay, and that's interesting, I think, for everybody. So why do you think that desirability is out of scope, Tim?
It's confirmed by a lot of external stakeholders that they want that. So there is no need to reflect on that. So there's a customer base asking for that.
Okay. And then the question also is, so I love how you phrase that. It's validated, it's proven. But then maybe let's go on, because indeed, last week we zoomed in, of course, on the desirability part, because that's step number one. If that proof isn't there, then why bother, about the business case? Why bother developing a costly proof of concept? So the model that we introduced, sorry to overwhelm you, Tim and Juan, but the rest has seen it step by step last week, is actually a motivational model to understand and empathize with relevant stakeholders. First and foremost, maybe potential buyers or customers or users. And then the perspective that I shared last week with the group was that it's important, as part of the desirability, to first understand 4 motivations that might be present in more or less extent. 4 motivations that together determine whether or not somebody is motivated, or how much somebody is motivated and why, for engaging in a change and adopting something new. And it all starts with this push in the bottom left. So is there an urgency to leave the current state? But also is the motivation to go to a better place. So how attracted are we to certain success, certain better outcome, regardless of what the solution is, but just the effect, the future state, the success that we might achieve, the benefits. But then also having like a keen perspective as well on maybe some forces that will hold us back, that prevent us from changing or being motivated for change. And that, on the one hand, refers to the anxiety about this future state, because also, maybe a better future state is also a bit scary or risky, but also inertia, really a characteristic of the current state that holds us back, make sure that we're in the comfort zone or that we're stuck and hampered by all kind of processes or routines or habits or whatever. So that for me, Tim, in your case, will be a question like, okay, you have some proof. So then what exactly did you learn about your customers that motivates them for change? And yeah, Tim. Oh.
Yeah, I mean they have more business needs on their side, and the business model of the customers is changing, and while cost pressure is increasing on their side, so they are actively searching for better solutions, and by that they also address this what I through my project offer to them, and with that there's definitely this push that you're seeing here, and the inertia, of course, is that it requires some investments on either on both or even both sides, and this is holding them back. So this I think is pretty well understood from my project.
Okay, perfect. Well, what I'd like to do is to, if this model is clear, and maybe some people from last week, if you want, you can ask a clarification question now, or you maybe want to raise a point. I don't know. But if the model is clear, then actually I would like to give you the opportunity in small groups to discuss this and to maybe discuss with each other briefly for about 20 minutes, how this applies to your specific project and a stakeholder, a potential customer or buyer or group of buyers. Stakeholders. Okay. So I don't know if that is okay with you. Otherwise, let me know. Then we can maybe have first a more general discussion about the model. But if it's clear, then what I'd like to do is to go into this breakout modus. But then I must admit that I don't know, René, are you still here? Because I cannot see the breakout option, I think, in Zoom, as I didn't set up the meeting. Well, if not, then maybe I'm curious, who gave it a go to apply this model to your project? So maybe anybody would like to maybe share some insights or thoughts, and maybe potentially even share a slide. That's all possible at this point, because let's take 20 minutes for this. And then just to get the agenda straight, that for me is a stepping stone towards the rest of the session, which is more about stakeholder management in general. But that's the second part of today. Yeah. So anybody with some thoughts on this model for your project? So that means that nobody really gave it the effort to apply it, or Sam?
Definitely tried it. First of all, I set project. So last time I thought about that my original project ideas went garbage, somehow not successful. So a new idea is just a hypothetical project is something like, everyone knows about trading desks, right? Trading, electronic trading, high frequency trading. So computers located close to the trading centers, on a high frequent base, they're updated with what's going on the market, and they can join, interact, place orders, make buy or sells. So, and now next step is put the trading desk into space. So it's out in the space. So trading desk, there are obviously motivations around this, inertias around this. So to my mind came the following points. And we were in the business of electronic trading and high frequency trading and so on. So fairness is the most important point about this. So why do we want to go to space? Because there's no dirty games. So for everyone, it's the same rules. Everyone has the same distance to space. Well, it's also not that easy, but to a virtual sphere, let's say, that's then so it's fair, it's cool, and we should go there. As in international waters, there's same thing for laws. So no country laws. It's interesting. It's a push. We could incorporate Earth observation. Everyone knows the story about Teslas and the relation between parking lots and their success and so on. So we could use information from space, which is available more rapidly than from Earth. It's available all the time. So a lot of push things, 24/7 and so on, not only trading hours. Obviously, there are many points against. Inertia, there are so many trading desks around, power consumption. The big players will be not there, and so on.
And Sam, let me ask you a question, because the assignment for the homework, so to speak, was really to focus on a particular person, ideally, or a specific stakeholder, a specific type of person or role. So who are we talking about in your case? Because I can imagine there's a zillion types of stakeholders involved. So who do you have in mind?
Basically, the operator of this new platform.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, and what's the current state of that person? Because I think that's important to distinguish. That's a general lesson for all of us. So
the current state is one of these large trading desk companies like Nasdaq, Börse Stuttgart, or whatever, you name it.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a solution in mind. So you also have a future state in mind of that user using that innovation of yours. But this model is really about trying to empathize with that person in the current state, regardless of the specific solution. So it's really about empathizing with that person right here, right now, agnostic of the particular solution.
Yes.
So then the question would be, and I like your application of the model. That's for sure. But just to also for the rest of the group to understand the kind of the very pure application of it. For instance, what is the desired outcome? What are the benefits that you believe these people are looking for?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. The point is, the fairness is available then for everyone around the globe.
Yeah.
It's fair for everyone, has the same distance to the trading information and
Right.
can participate. And otherwise, it's always a silo. So it's
Right.
a NASDAQ silo. Or,
Yeah. And then I think another point that's of interest to everybody. It seems like, Sam, that you're talking about the operator of, let's say, currently the NASDAQ model. But then with respect to the fairness or the equality motivation, then we're actually talking about fairness for NASDAQ's users or customers, so to speak. Correct?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And NASDAQ's customers have the same impression. So they can spend a lot of money to be treated fair, they can co-locate and so on.
Yeah. And yeah, okay. And that's important so thanks for giving that message, Sam, because if I go back to Tim and Tim's example earlier on, then Tim, back to you. Also, the case that you mentioned, it was really about also the customers of your customers, so to speak, right? The businesses of businesses that ultimately is important to understand, correct?
Fully correct. This is what drives them, and
Right.
they have to transform. So we have to transform as well, and have to
yeah. So that really is driving home the message that it's important to understand kind of the ecosystem or a supply chain or however whatever the label is for you, but understanding different stakeholders in a system. And I'll come back to that point later on. But for now, Sam, thank you for giving us an application on the spot. I love it.
Good.
Anybody else with maybe a mini case to share with respect to your impact project, or maybe a question about the model? I don't know.
Maybe one question.
Yeah.
Do you necessarily have to focus on one stakeholder?
No. The short answer is no. And that's also exactly why the rest of we build it up. The rest of the session is more about stakeholder management, so about stakeholder mapping. So who are the stakeholders? But at the core, I think we provided this model first because ultimately, in the ideal case, which is impossible, but ideally you would have a full understanding and also feeling of all these motivational forces for every relevant individual stakeholder.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
No, I found the last session a very useful reminder again of thinking about who my stakeholder, who's my audience, right?
Yeah.
My impact project is about European industrial policy, right? So
Right.
a very
Yeah.
large audience if you define that by policymakers and everyone who influences policymakers.
Exactly. Yeah.
But ultimately, you have to break it a little bit down and think about who are proxies for that, right? So I'm not presenting in front of the European Commission or Ms. von der Leyen or etc., right?
Yeah.
So there's an ESA audience, for instance, at the presentation, right? I'm talking with opinion leaders and academics as part of my project.
That's so
and
true.
there are new space companies I'm talking to, right? Of thinking about what would impact them.
Yeah.
So these are interesting stakeholders to be kept in mind that I ideally want to offer some guidance, maybe in the case of a new space entrepreneur who doesn't have the time to reflect on the overall political framework he or she is interacting in, right? And offering some solutions. ESA is a very specific institution, part of the political, they're part of to be advised, part of being the advisory object. That makes sense. Being part of the international organizations in Europe, and opinion leaders who form maybe the political discussion informally. Right. So these are kind of three groups I'm trying to keep in mind and
Yeah.
ideally want to address and analyze, looking at what pull and push means to them
Right.
separately, depending on me presenting at ESA, me presenting to maybe to catch up with the people I use their input from, or whether I put it on LinkedIn and address it to opinion leaders who I talked to or didn't talk to in the last couple of months but followed. So yeah, these are kind of the three audiences, and I still need to get my head around how different the pull and push are for them to, I don't know, ideally need to make a decision of who to focus more, who to focus less on.
Well, thanks so much for
Makes sense?
yeah, definitely, and you know, also taking that to the next level, because I think your reflections that you share with us is so relevant just for all of us in the room to see and feel how important this is, because I think the same perspective is relevant for all the projects in the room. And then you mentioned like I have to get my head around these different audiences and exactly how this works. My recommendation would be is that it takes more than thinking about it, so to speak, but this maybe actually takes research to kind of validate your assumptions. Because maybe you want to get your head around it, like which seems like, hey, I have to think about it, maybe do some desk research, read some stuff, talk to people about it, and then make some sense of it. Ideally, and I would recommend, is that you go beyond than your beliefs, partly facts, but also kind of with selected stakeholders, do an interview or an observation to kind of validate or test what's really going on and if your assumptions or beliefs are really true or not.
Right. Well, at the moment, I'm doing them all, right?
Perfect.
If I had to focus on, then probably would have need to talk 2-3 months ago and do this exercise, and I don't know, only pick one of them also. But
yeah, and I mean, there we have to also be pragmatic, because we don't have all the time in the world, because we could spend, I don't know, years talking to people and doing that research. But I think it's about, you know, with the understanding from this model, as you say, Gerrit, then based on that, select stakeholders and then interview them selectively to learn as much as possible with the limited time that you have.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, great. Maybe Wendy, I'm really curious. Last week, it also seemed like that this model or the introduction was quite helpful for you, at least to reassure you, to structure your mind a little bit. I understand that maybe you've been so busy that it was difficult to really give this a go and apply to your project. But maybe just on the spot, thinking out loud, what can you share with us?
I applied the exercise to 3 stakeholders.
Oh, perfect.
I did it. One of the stakeholders was myself, and that's still the most interesting conversation to have. What is pushing or pulling me, and the anxiety and the inertia.
Okay.
The one that I'm trying to figure out now is for the partners or design experts that I want to have in my pool that I can collaborate with in the future, because that's part of what I'm researching. But that's mainly based on assumptions. Part of it is already, I mean, the experiment I did this summer with one of the design experts explicitly told me why he wanted to work with me and how happy he was with income and etc. So there are some facts, but also still some assumptions.
Okay, great. So
I have further work to do.
Okay, but I love it how you talk about it, because it's really in line with the logic that I try to convey to all of us about the testing and being aware of those assumptions, and also be very reflective also towards yourself. So I really like that, Wendy. Thanks for sharing. But then any questions about the application of it, or it was intuitively clear, the model so far? No struggles with that. Okay.
For me, it was very clear. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, then let's take the next step, unless there are any questions at this point, because otherwise let's build on top of this. Yes, so far so good? Okay, Ciao for you? Going well? Oh. Ciao, yes, for you? Is this relevant for you, for your project, or you're not here in the capacity working on your project?
Well, it is pretty valuable, but I'm not an attendee. I'm from Novus BT.
Yes, I was
So
also under that impression. Yes, okay, but I just want to check with your attention level, Joe. So just kidding. Okay, good. All right. Then let's.
Validating assumptions, Redmond.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Normally, in class, I would do this a little bit more interactively, but I just want to give you some tools so that we can have a quick start, a head start in the session. Because regardless of the solution, and now I think it's a good moment also to come back to Sam and also to Tim, and I guess everybody in the room. But since we started with some of your projects, this is kind of how you can take the next step from the previous analysis. And these are just two templates, two one-sentence templates, very generic ones, that in fact for any change project, for any innovation, for any project is, I think, possible and relevant to try and formulate. And it's solution agnostic. So the solution, the specific product or service or solution, the innovation is not part of this sentence on purpose. Okay, because maybe you have a solution in mind, but as mentioned, the process forces us to really understand the problem or the opportunity, phrased differently, the opportunity to go from the current state to a future state, to formulate that very concisely. Okay, so yes, so far so good. Looking at this template. But I just want to make you aware of the fact that for sure, there's always, no matter how technical your project is, or you focus on the technology readiness or the feasibility and stuff like that. There's always users, there's always stakeholders involved that have to adopt the innovation, that have to influence, that have to be motivated, that have to be convinced. So therefore, from that perspective, the four forces are always relevant, regardless of, I don't know, how well the technology works and whether or not we have TRL 9 proof. So to drive home that message, I'd like to just establish the link between these very generic problem statements and the model that we've just seen. And because very often, if you bring it down to the individual decision maker level or stakeholder level, whoever is involved, these causes or these root causes, more often than not, have to do with one or more of these motivational forces. And therefore, that's what has to change. That's what you have to have a solution for. So that means changing why these causes maybe means increasing, decreasing, removing, or replacing, whatever, an urgency or a vision or a barrier or an anxiety. Okay, so my question to you would be, maybe in this webinar, but otherwise as a preparation work for the module for sure in October in Rotterdam, to kind of formulate this one sentence template, and by linking it to the felt or not forces of a relevant stakeholder. Okay. Yes, makes sense. And yeah, again, I'm not asking this just for the fun of it. We do this based on the method that we apply. That's also evidence-based, that kind of from which we know that it increases the chances of success of ultimately finding and developing something that's valuable. Okay. And so this is what we would recommend. But I'd like to take it one step further, because this is an intermediate step. But any questions about this? No? Okay. And maybe you can do that for multiple stakeholders. So, and also it shows you that it kind of opens up alternative solutions, formulating it like this. Formulating the question like starting with how might we opens up a diverging state of mind. So it asks us, it stimulates us to generate, to come up with multiple ideas. and it doesn't bring us into an evaluation mindset, which is more converging. So this triggers us first and foremost to just to think about all kind of possible, extreme, outrageous, possibly ideas for getting the job done. Okay, so it's very important. Maybe as you do this with a team, to make sure that you have an effective team. Because you're now sitting here as individuals, but maybe you have to do this project ultimately with I don't know, with your core team, your I don't know, your guiding coalition or your founding team, and then also you have to be an effective team, and then it helps if you have the same mindset in different parts of the process. Of course, sometimes you have to judge and evaluate and rank and criticize, but at some point in the process, you have to be collectively at the same point open-minded and generative. Okay, so then these tools help you to guide that process. Okay, all right. So then, yeah, this is maybe something to apply maybe later on, but for now, I just would like to just make this message and give you this tool so that it's part of your toolbox, and we can also include that in the preparation work for the module in October. But I'd like to take one step further, and that's by giving you, the following model. 1 second. This one. I'll just bring it forward for the sake of the discussion. It's maybe a lot to digest, but it's just some copy-paste work of mine. You see the exact same model with the 4 forces. And it shows you how these 4 forces can be combined with a very generic model, namely the adoption curve or the adoption model, innovation diffusion model. And there it shows that you can distinguish typically a group of stakeholders between maybe early adopters on the one hand side and maybe laggards on the other side. Because very often the stakeholders that you are involved with are part of a group. And there's maybe, I don't know, 10 or maybe hundreds or thousands of, actors or individuals in a certain group. But within that, you probably have segments of homogeneous, like-minded people. And one of the biggest advantages of understanding this 4 forces model that I've introduced earlier on is that it helps you, based on that, to have meaningful segmentations of the market. Okay, because more often than not, we as innovators maybe focus on these early adopters. These are maybe the fans. These are maybe people that we already know. These are maybe the ambassadors, or people who really want to work with us, are already part of our launching ecosystem or whatever. But they are not, by definition, representative, so to speak, of the bigger market of these kind of stakeholders. Okay, very often that market is very heterogeneous. And the way to distinguish between segments is, for instance, not based on typically maybe country or size of an organization or age of an organization or person or whatever, or gender or these kind of things, or educational level, these demographics. But it's very important to segment your market, sub-segment your market based on motivational forces. Yeah. Can you see this so far? Because that's it. If you look on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of this picture, people are radically different in terms of the 4 forces, and that might be radically different. And that subsequently allows us as researchers to maybe position some people more on the left-hand side of this model and others more on the right. It's not visible. It's really, we have to understand their motivations and fears, and only then we can decide, hey, this is more kind of like an early adopter. Oh, this seems to be more kind of a late majority kind of person. Yes? And that's really what you want to understand, because more often than not, we kind of mistake early adopters for being representative of the entire market, or we assume just the market to be homogeneous in the first place, and that's a big mistake. Okay, so Yeah, maybe I don't know. Since we've been discussing some of these cases from the start today, Tim, if we go back to your case, is it possible for you to reflect on this a little bit? How this relates to your case? Because you have some proof, you say, and yeah, well, we're not challenging that, but I'm just curious if we can have a discussion how this applies to your project, and I'm sure that we can all learn from it.
Yeah. So my customers are the different missions in ESA and satellite missions. And satellite missions differ a lot in their scope, in their funding situation, and also in their, let's say, a bit like their culture. Some of them go back to the 80s or 90s, were designed there and use, I would say, outdated IT systems, but they have to because they cannot move away from that. I think we often have in space that we use systems that are not really the most modern, but they have to work.
Right.
And then we have some missions which are just in development and just launched now, and then of course they use more modern systems, modern approaches. Understanding that means that some of them are, of course, by culture and also by readiness, easier to convince in moving, so to move earlier than the others. And other missions watch them closely, so other customers watch them closely and see how this works for them, and then are ready to follow, but they are very, very risk averse. As it is a general problem in the world of spacecraft operations that they are conservative at it, to say it nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's probably something different to other domains that we have. Just the bulk here in your diagram very, very much to the right side.
Right.
So for us, it's therefore important to find who would be able to support us as innovator, or what you call him, early evangelist here.
Yeah.
And if you have one of them, the others follow. But it's very, very crucial to find this. In the end, it's a person. Thank you.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you for sharing, Tim. What are the reactions of others to this? Because Gerrit, you mentioned influencers earlier on, or the act of influencing. And now, indeed, one important remark that Tim made. So if you have some early adopters on board, then some others, maybe not everybody, but some others will follow as a result. So you see some dynamics, some tactics maybe of influencing playing out. So how is that for you, Gerrit?
I don't know. I would need to reflect on that, because there's quite a big difference probably how specific people see an institution as an early innovator or a laggard in changing policy, for instance. Mm-hmm. So whether ESA, for instance, changed radically its policy on, I don't know, service-based contracts or something like that relevant to industrial policy might be seen by some people as way more going ahead than the EU does in their policy in space, and by others it might be seen as spectators as laggards, actually, because they demanded change already 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's highly subjective and difficult to categorize stakeholders now in these brackets. But it's an interesting model.
Okay, so at least you've seen it, you have it in the back of your mind. So it's maybe a perspective to continue to look at periodically at what's going on in your kind of in a certain group of people, because nobody is alike. And so just to maybe what I haven't even mentioned explicitly, indeed, if there's a big push and or pull present in somebody's motivations, but there's hardly any anxiety or inertia, even though maybe it's objectively there, right? Then we would in particular label this person as an early adopter or as an innovator.
I guess what is the consequence out of that? So as soon as you're trying to influence a laggard, it's much more difficult, I assume, because there's no big push and pull present, and you have to actively deal with their anxieties, right? So if you want to influence an innovator, then you have much more tailwind, right? Because you're basically trying to influence someone who is on his way already, right?
Yeah, or to put it even more extreme, maybe you don't even have to do anything to motivate an early adopter, because that person is by definition highly motivated for change. So it's somebody who wants to work with you, maybe even sponsor you, finance you, want to be a part of a pilot, wants to do communication work, maybe reach out to other people in their network. So these are your fans, your ambassadors, so to speak, your early adopters.
Right.
And that's the point. Maybe you don't have to do anything to motivate them. And on the other hand, knowing that somebody is maybe a laggard because this person is very anxious, even though maybe objectively that's simply not true, but still we have to maybe appreciate and know and understand that maybe that emotion exists, then that's still a fact. And we might have an opinion about that, but that doesn't change the fact that it's simply how this person is motivated at that moment.
Right.
And we might choose, to come back to your remark, to maybe spend no effort on it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's better to make some traction to learn a little bit with early adopters. But back to your point, what's the takeaway from this? How can we work with this? I think that is what I mean with the scaling part. Because if we talk about entrepreneurship, if we talk about innovation, then we often see startups, for instance, or innovation teams being very successful in the early stages, doing some pilots, some tests, and having some early successes and quick wins. But if I really exaggerate, that's in principle almost always the case with innovators. That you have some happy, enthusiastic innovators. But that's the point. That's almost by definition, then maybe you already have a 100% market share in the market of early adopters. But it's by no means representative of what is likely to be happening in the scaling that you envision in the bigger market. Because actually it's a different market. It's different segments with different motivations, because maybe there all of a sudden you have a group of people that are completely differently motivated than the early adopters because of the existence of a certain barrier X or an anxiety Y. Okay, so for that matter, if I go back to this tool, I would challenge you to maybe make some assumptions, or maybe based on your knowledge so far, of different problem statements for different groups of people in your ecosystem. And then, let me finish my point. The biggest problem in the world of innovation is the problem, but which ultimately is what it's all about. It's that of scaling, making impact, of going beyond the early adopter and the early innovation phase and the pilot and the experimenting phase, but to really scale, to go from convincing and having traction in a beachhead market, so to speak, but to scale to the rest of the market, to the mass market. But that almost by definition means the fact that most markets aren't homogeneous, that you have to go step by step from one segment to another. And if you're really lucky, then it doesn't take any effort, because going from segment A to segment B, as Tim mentions, convinces the subsequent group to also try and adopt. That's of course the ideal typical situation, which almost never ever happens. But we can think about that. We can try and test if that works or not. We can be strategic about that. Yes? Great. Johan, how are you doing? Is this interesting for you? How are you applying this or digesting this?
Yes, reflecting on what you say, it's quite interesting. Thank you for sharing. Well, actually, there is only one point in open point in my eyes, saying that when we have the innovators and early evangelists, I like the word early evangelist, meaning that they sometimes are creating the market or just opening new doors, let's say, and then we have the early majority coming or not, but the market is sometimes, in my case or for my business case, is the market is not even here.
Yeah.
So there is no early majorities, there is no late majorities, there is no laggards, there is just innovators and a lot of people trying to to enter that segment, but the segment is not there. There is no market at all yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to apply this model, to be honest.
Yeah, fair point. But then still, you have your assumptions about that market.
Yes, but projection.
Exactly. And then it's about testing that. And then making it happen.
That's prediction. Yeah.
Well, it's well, maybe, yeah, it's in a way prediction, but you have to still prove it. Because I would rather say it's a hypothesis. So you hypothesize that a certain group of people is motivated in a certain way, so that they're likely to adopt your solution, for instance. But that's then your job to, as an entrepreneur or entrepreneurial person, to try and validate that in a smart way, in a cheap way, in a fast way, ideally. And that is then indeed the source of creating a new market. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's an entire field of study, which is that of disruption. And so then often it's about what we call non-consumers. So the theory really focuses maybe on non-users. And maybe we already have the high end of the market, where maybe big customers have the budget for it, and they have a certain solution already. But then more often than not, there's also kind of a low end of the market, which is low end to such an extent that it's actually non-users. Right? They just cannot afford, or it's too expensive for them, or it's too excessive, the solutions that are already there. And then maybe you have an opportunity to work in that vacuum, so to speak, and below the radar in a way, get some traction going. Anyway, it's a small sidestep triggered by what you said, Johan, but thanks. We can continue the conversation in Rotterdam, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So I just wanted to drive home this message, linking it to the four forces, showing you the relevance of it. Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. Put something in the chat, or raise your hand, or just speak up. Okay. So yeah, I don't know if you've seen those slides before, but this is some screenshots from some of the previous modules of last year, just to touching upon the complexity of the space ecosystem, so to speak. So you have a lot of different types of players, but then again, within every maybe bubble in this model, we can think about this adoption curve that we just saw, that you probably have a lot of different subsegments within each type of actor. Okay.
We are only talking about Switzerland here, no? I only recognize Swiss stakeholders here. No?
That's right.
It's a very local cluster. Yeah.
That's right. So this is just to be very precise. Sorry, what, Sam?
It's my cluster.
Yeah, sorry.
It's very
relevant.
Yeah, so without a doubt, yeah. So and again, the disclaimer is I just copied this from the slides from last time. So yeah, maybe you've seen this as well, or maybe not this year, or maybe an updated version of this. But that's just a disclaimer, and but just for the sake of showing the complexity of it, and but also the possibility and the relevance of trying to map it and visualize it, because this is an attempt to kind of show the context in which you operate. Great. Thanks, Joe. See you in Rotterdam. And another version of something similar, maybe you've also seen it before, also from St. Gallen in this example. Yeah, also another picture showing the complexity of all kind of activities with probably all kind of players involved in the different types of activities here. So is this something that you've seen before as well, or not? You cannot recollect. But it's just to illustrate from the program. But the question, of course, is, with respect to your impact projects, how does something similar look like for your project? Because there's many different stakeholders involved, and there is I think an inherent value in trying to visualize it, just to make sense of it all, but and maybe in your head you have a clear picture, but very often, you know, as you really want to work on this project for a longer period of time, you have to engage with others. You have to also explain maybe your vision to others, and you have to find common ground and common perspective, a common language. So then having some kind of visual, some kind of mapping is extremely important, because, you know, subsequently it's also about being strategic about maybe, yeah, influencing this ecosystem in a certain direction, and maybe starting in a certain place or position with the idea of having an impact elsewhere. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, this is a completely different context, but I always use this picture, and no matter what kind of industry I do this kind of training, this is just a nice example of, you know, again, making the distinction between actual users, because maybe in this case, you know, we care about, creating value for children with asthma, but then seeing the entire ecosystem around it of different, in different clusters, different stakeholders, but also with relationships between them, and where these relationships, can have a certain, content or substance. And on the left, I just have a random list of bullet points of things that you can possibly kind of visualize with those lines connecting different groups of stakeholders. Okay. So this is really something that also I would recommend you to do, to kind of, you know, map a little bit how, you know, your situation is looking like. And this is, I think, also back to Tim's case, or I think also in your case, Sam, that you have users of users, or buyers of buyers. That's what you see here as well. Because maybe, I don't know, the teachers are the actual buyers, but the actual users are the children, or the buyer is maybe the hospital, but the actual user, the one who benefits, is maybe the kid, you know. So that's what we have to visualize. And giving you a little example of, you know, how to map and visualize the things on the left, power or money flow or whatever. I have this little picture for you. I don't know about the quality of the picture, but at least you see between the very classic famous Apple ecosystem, you see the different stakeholders being connected by different types of arrows with different colors, going maybe one way or the other way, or both directions. Just as a very quick and dirty example, but it shows you, if you look at the top left of this visual, that you can visualize maybe the very basic, back and forth exchange of money versus maybe assets. If you buy something, just transactional things, products go one direction and the money goes the other way. But there's also other relationships between actors. So for instance, information flow, but also intangible value that's maybe being shared across an ecosystem. And then, for instance, we can think about things like reputation. I don't know, if you're an official Apple programmer, so to speak, then maybe you get some instant credibility. So it's kind of, you get some intangible value by being part of that ecosystem. So these are things to be aware of as you think of your own ecosystem. So I'm just curious what the status is. Does anybody have a picture for? I'm not asking you to share it on the spot, but I'm just curious. Did some of you maybe think about this? Do you have a visual with respect to your project? What's the status? Do you have something like that to communicate, to make sense of it all? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not so much a visual person. I'm more a bullet point person, but I see the value of having it for convincing others. Yeah, so I'll definitely try.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Tim. And Wendy, you wanted to also add? Or?
Yeah. I am a very visual person, but I don't have this for my business.
Yeah. No, and
helpful.
And indeed, so in that sense, it's what we would, of course, our module in October is also really about storytelling, convincing, leading actually in that sense, and then it's also about reflection. So Tim, also for your personal maybe learning style or communication style, being very empathetic with your audience and about being an effective leader, then these kind of things it's very important to maybe maybe also test for yourself whether or not this works, because maybe it turns out that, I don't know, your good old bullet point style is more than sufficient to do the job. But maybe you can give this a go and see what the effect is on your influence and your leadership, so to speak. Okay, but then the point I wanted to make is the following: is that maybe I'll come back to this in a second. That we can back to the four forces model. We can try to understand and map the current situation, the current like in the kid with the asthma, how the ecosystem is currently working. But then the example that we have over here, and of course, maybe this picture also reflects the current Apple ecosystem. But my question to you would be, maybe also as some kind of preparation thinking work go towards the next module, is what is your vision, knowing your solution, for the ecosystem that you want to have ideally, let's say in 3 to 5 to 10 years time? Yes, very often, if you want to apply this as an effective tool for yourself, if you to really bring you into some guided strategic action in the short term, it's really the result of backcasting from a very clear vision further down the road. So in that sense, you kind of making this visual of the future desired ecosystem is not a prediction, because we talked about prediction before, I think, Johan. But that's just your vision, your preferred, ideal, typical vision, which you cannot predict will be the result. But you can for sure backcast from your envisioned future to the present day, and then subsequently decide, hey, what is a strategic move that I better try to bring about right now, which is aligned with the vision that I have. Okay, and that's actually a very core activity in just strategy of this. Also, this not just the thinking present forward, which we tend to do, but also reason future backwards, so to speak. Okay, and so definitely also recommendation would be to kind of map out your ideal typical future state, because I guess almost always, especially for you in this room, whatever solution or future state you're thinking of, it will affect and it will involve and it will require adoption from and change from a range of different stakeholders. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, see some people nodding. So then, and these are all important tools then to understand. Yes. Okay. So we have some time left in this session. So I think I'd like to introduce one more thing, and then I think we have covered a lot of things which we haven't really workshop style been able to apply. But it will help us to give you a very targeted set of instructions preparing for the module in Rotterdam. But I just want to check in with you if this is doable for you. Do you feel like that independently you're able to kind of give it a go with some of these perspectives or tools or visuals? I think so. Wendy, see you agreeing a little bit. Sam, how's that for you?
Absolutely, yeah. A graphical representation here of the stakeholder mapping should be there.
Okay, great. Great. Does anybody want to give it a go, or do you have a question, or do you maybe you're thinking about it, you're digesting it, but maybe even though you really have a finished thought, maybe you want to think out loud in this group, so we can help you out. Anybody at the moment that we can help? No?
No, my only issue is that I'm still colorblind, but that you cannot help me. But Wendy will probably.
Then okay, Tim. Then I really must apologize, because then I have a horrible assignment for you.
No. I mean for my visualization. So
yeah. But you're colorblind, a little bit colorblind. You mentioned. Right?
Yeah. Be prepared that I will be pink, even if a bit of me noticing.
Okay, but then I really have to apologize for my grand finale. because my grand finale is one more thing, and that's this slide. So yeah, maybe I take it one step back, because also my assignment to you, and I will explain that into a kind of together with Renee in a kind of an instruction for you preparing for the module in October, is to not only formulate a one-sentence problem statement, but also to from the logic of thinking future backwards, of trying to concisely communicate and put on paper your impact statement, because almost all of you, in the mid to long term, you want to have an impact. You want to have a positive change. That's also what RSM is all about. So we want to help you to kind of crystallize that future state, the positive change that you want to bring about, and then also as leaders, as entrepreneurial leaders, help you to take some short-term actions as well. But the template that we give you for this impact statement is based on in total 6 ingredients of this typical impact statement. And sorry, Tim, these 6 elements have 6 different colors. But I don't know, Tim, if that is clear to you on this slide.
I will have somebody helping me if it's unclear, but
okay,
a few
great.
colors I see. Okay,
great. And so on the left, you see kind of the 6 categories or elements of that statement. And then I have, completely out of the context, but again, just some generic examples of applications of this template. And this is one. So this gives you a feeling for what we're looking for. So again, I really challenge you and we will also ask you a preparation question to formulate this statement for yourself for your project. And it's always possible to apply that to your project, without a doubt. And maybe you have different versions, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to nail it. It doesn't have to be the final version that will be with you for forever, but it will be a prototype. It will be something that gives you context, and it also will help you to make things a little bit more specific. So, any questions about this? No? Can I ask what is the impact that you want to make, for instance? Anybody else? Anybody have an idea? And I'm not talking about the exact the full sentence with all ingredients, but what's the positive change that you want to bring about? Does anybody want to share? What's the positive change to improve or achieve what? The green part?
Yeah. Yeah, on my side, it's to increase mission safety during operations.
Okay, by when?
Of satellites.
By when? Do we have a time frame?
Yeah, as soon as possible, because well, you have to think about this, how to formulate this with the emerging market. Maybe you can have it in 1 year.
Yeah, again, with this adoption curve, maybe it will take some time to go from mission to mission, because in your case, how many missions exist, Tim? You have different. You mentioned that there are different missions.
Yeah, there are 22 satellites and about 12 or 13 missions.
Okay, so when will you be happy? If you have a 100% adoption, or will you be happy that, I don't know, in 10 years' time, 50% of the market is yours?
No, I will be happy that we have an early adopter, when we have the first one.
Okay,
maybe you can say this. Yeah, the first one next year.
But that's in the short term. What's your long-term dream?
Long term, that everybody does it, of course.
Yeah, okay.
And there's an ecosystem evolving for that type of service.
Okay. And then who are because we make a distinction between so-called takers, and that's actually the concept I wanted to drop. That's maybe the most new thing in this slide, that you can make a distinction between so-called takers and actual end users. So maybe, continuing with your case, Tim, sorry about that. So who would you consider to be the eventual end users of your project? And is there a place for intermediaries, so to speak, these takers that we've defined on the left, as actors or organizations that maybe you empower, but that's not a goal itself. They kind of, required adopters for making the eventual impact.
I would even say that we as ESA would be the early adopter, because we can certainly, my belief is that we can move a bit faster than the others, at least in some areas.
Okay.
And then we give a good showcase to commercial companies to adopt the same approach.
Yeah, back to the example earlier of this, the children with asthma, they are the end users, of course, right? So back to also what we discussed earlier, that you have businesses of businesses. If you're in a B2B or B2B2B or I don't know, a government to businesses setting, you can make this known. So Sam, in your case, the example that you gave earlier had to do with these operators, so to speak. So these operators, are these takers, are these end users? How do you see this?
Oh, yeah. Still thinking a little bit about what I really, really want to achieve.
Okay.
Well, achieve fairness for the whole world.
Okay, yeah. So equality, yeah. So that's your dream. This is possible to dream here. That's the purpose of this sentence. So because this sentence is also, something to motivate. This is your leadership. It's your visionary communication maybe that you want to share. Right? So this is not a prediction for the future. This is a vision for the future. But then still, it involves different actors inherently.
Exactly. So, and the major actors are obviously the stake or the holders of this of the stakes of the stocks. And need to motivate big stock players to be there.
Right.
To be on a certain trading this.
Okay. Yeah. And
once this is achieved, all others will follow him, because it can only be traded there.
Yeah. And this is nice. So this is the last thing that you mentioned, Sam. Let me just drive home that message to the rest of the group. Again, about influencing. That maybe you have to influence group A so that a group B will follow, or will have easier access, or will be motivated to adopt, or whatever. So, and for that we have to understand the roles of different stakeholders in an ecosystem, and that's what we're talking about here. Okay. So. Yes, so I have another example, which I'm not going to, discuss or show for too long, but it will be part of the slide deck. So again, it's a tool that I think we can all try and adopt coming into the session in Rotterdam. And yeah, so how's that for you, Wendy? Does this make sense to give it a go after today?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. It's an ongoing question for myself. So.
Okay. And then I think I want to really address you as these entrepreneurs in the room, as these change agents, maybe rather, and the importance of understanding your networks. Then I have one final follow-up message to wrap it all up, is that these roles of takers is very important. So who are the takers in your ecosystem? But I have another message about that, and another label. I think there are different types of takers, and one of them is of crucial importance. And let me just introduce that by showing you this picture. It's a completely different picture than an ecosystem with different organizations, but this is just and this let's be honest, this is a social network of one organization. In this case. So this is really about the communication intensity between people in one organization. Okay, and you see also that if you look at the different categories in the bottom left, you see that these different colors represent also different people across a hierarchy, the formal org chart in an organization. But what you see here is the actual communication intensity between people in that organization. But I would like you to adopt a different perspective on this picture, because this could also easily be an ecosystem of people across organizations. Just imagine that, I don't know, the cluster in the top right is organization A, and maybe the standalone small network in the bottom right is another organization, and the people within that organization. Yeah, can you imagine that? I think so, but what I would like to just show you, and it's already on the slide, is that that concept of multipliers. So in a lot of or at least in some of the public projects that I'm involved in as a coach, also from the EU projects, this is a concept that goes beyond that of takers, And it helps you to identify, well, in a way, maybe the early adopters or the biggest influencers, and they're the multipliers, so to speak. And very often it has to do with spotting the right people in an ecosystem. And it's really on an individual basis. It's so in this ecosystem that we have in this picture, who do you believe are the multipliers? Can you spot them?
Yeah, as I wrote in the chat, it's not the CEO, definitely.
No, that's for sure.
Quite-
Oh, sorry, I'm not keeping an eye on the chat. It's lonely at the top. Yes, exactly. It's also at Garrett. That's right, and that's maybe not even a bad thing. So indeed, if this is the org chart, and then indeed in the center you see a little bit the the C-level folks, and they have hardly any communication going on back and forth between people. So that means maybe they're very directive. They have a top-down communication style, and maybe that works, or maybe that doesn't. So we can have an opinion about that, but yeah, this is just maybe a description. Might also be that maybe there's a lot of new hires. Maybe I don't know, the person that doesn't have any connections to anybody. Let's say the CFO is a brand new one, so that person doesn't have social capital, as we call it. Is not connected to anybody yet. For instance, likewise for entire units or departments, and maybe the group, the disconnected group in the bottom right is maybe an acquisition, is maybe a startup company that was just acquired. Right? Could be the case. So nobody knows them, so there's no collaboration going on. So they're disconnected at the moment. So that's for sure. But back to the question: who could be important figures, key figures, multipliers for creating a movement, for influencing people, for ensuring adoption, for ensuring creativity? What are the key players in this ecosystem?
Well,
just visually,
right.
this, go for it.
Yes.
Okay. Top right cloud has 3 connection points: C-level, heir apparent, and this senior. And this senior is obviously this multiplier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all see the 3 lines indeed connect, and persons connecting the top right network with the rest of the system. So that's for sure. So we talk about people. Otherwise, suppose that they leave, then there's no connection with the rest of the system. So indeed, these are key people, Sam, for sure. But there's more to it. Gerrit, you also wanted to make a remark. Was it the same as Sam, or is something you want to add?
Yeah, well, just visually, it appeared to me like the bees seem to be multiplicators to the inside or to the outside world, and maybe the yellow squares to the inside world. But they certainly seem like multiplicators.
Yeah. Thanks for indeed pointing us to the bees. So they stand for the brokers, so to speak, or the bridges. So indeed, these are the people that connect one part of an ecosystem to another part of the ecosystem. So they're the connectors, so to speak. And indeed, if they leave, then you have a problem for the sense of information flow, for influencing activities. So very often understanding who the connectors are in your ecosystem is very important. And very often, Sam, I liked your response. As you mentioned, the 3 connectors, let's say in the top right corner. But very often you see that those multipliers, so to speak, those brokers, are people outside the formal top of the organization. Very often, in fact, they are informal leaders. They are maybe trusted people, maybe oftentimes also people with a big tenure. They're well known. They're in the industry for a long time. They have a big network. They have had many positions. They know a lot of people. They're trusted. They have a good reputation, and people go for them for advice. They are mentors, but very often they are not in the actual senior leader positions, formally speaking. And that I think is also important to understand, that these are very often very important takers, but within that, multipliers that you want to spot in your ecosystem to get a guiding coalition, to get a movement going. Okay, So yeah, my final takeaway is to think of that of multipliers, to try and spot them in your ecosystem and to use them, so to speak, to use them strategically to influence maybe people outside of your immediate network maybe, but people that are vital for spreading the word, for convincing others, for connecting to other stakeholder groups. So yeah, being aware of that, trying to map that, visualize that, and use that to your benefit, I think is very important if you work in complex ecosystems like yourselves. Okay. So any questions about this concept of takers or multipliers at the moment? Okay, does anybody already think of like, hey, you know, this could be for me an important person or connector or person to talk to, have a cup of coffee with? Anybody?
Constantly.
Constantly.
Wow. It's a networking exercise to get to the solution if you talk about politics, right? So I had to do that weeks ago. If I would do it now, then probably I wouldn't talk to anyone before Rotterdam.
Okay. Then yeah, I think if you actually understand that you're in a situation like this with many stakeholders, and yeah, then I think an exercise like this is all the more important, because then you can be strategic about it. You're not just I'm not saying you're doing that, Gerrit, but the alternative is that you, or an extreme opposite is that you kind of randomly talk to people. You have a cup of coffee with that person, with that person, with that person, but being a little bit strategic about it, yeah, can be very important. Just to if you understand, hey, you know, I want to test and validate who this person is, and what kind of role this person plays, and then I'd like to make it full circle, because you know, if you have a cup of coffee with potentially somebody you believe is a taker or a multiplier, then I would recommend you to ask that person 4 questions. What keeps you awake at night? In other words, you know, what is your push? What is success for you? What do you want to achieve? What are your anxieties potentially? And what are maybe any barriers that you're facing yourself, right? And if you can understand that for that person, and you can help that person achieve what's success for them, yeah, then I think you're building extremely important strategic partnerships.
Yep, agree.
Can you repeat the questions again?
Yeah, well, actually, yes, but I can also visualize for you, Sam.
Yeah.
Because that brings us back. It's a shame. I should have, you know, made it literally full circle. It's this.
Yeah. Okay.
It's this. So my question to you would be, you know, identify who you believe is a potential stakeholder, or a taker or a multiplier, but then understand what you believe is motivating that person.
Okay.
And then if you understand that and validate that in a cup of coffee, then it's really about, hey, you know, how can we help each other? How can you help me? How can I help you? And you know, is there because very often these people are also very motivated. They're visionary people because they know a lot what's going on. So they have some visions for the future. So yeah, I think there's for sure there's a lot of things to learn from talking to these people. Maybe about how other stakeholders that maybe you yourself don't have direct access to, and maybe you can interview those takers about those 4 forces of other people in the ecosystem, because they might have a good feeling for what holds other people back, or what drives other people that you don't have direct contact with. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, wrapping it up, because it's close to 1:30. I think we took a journey from this model from last time to, you know, maybe a tool that we can use to summarize that effort, and then we broadened it up by thinking about, hey, you know, any group of stakeholders, we can probably have different subgroups within that, depending on, you know, those 4 forces. So there's maybe strategic perspective, and then also, you know, yeah, with these introduction slides, we had visuals like this, And we came to understand that maybe it is important and relevant to kind of, visualize and maybe also link that to our vision for that ecosystem, and who are maybe strategic takers or multipliers in that ecosystem, so that we can pinpoint who we want to maybe target or have as partners in crime, as part of our ambassadors, as part of our guiding coalition is another change management concept, of course. So so that's basically what I wanted to share with you. And what we will have for you is actually just a few questions where we trigger you and stimulate you to apply this, to think about this, so that you come prepared to our sessions in Rotterdam, so we can build on top of that. Okay. And then we can take it from the desirability to thinking about feasibility and viability as well. But I think what we have covered so far is actually maybe so very much diving deeper into desirability and what it means for the different stakeholders involved. Yes? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Any questions at this point? No?
No, thank you from my side.
Okay, thank you. Then we will share the slides with you, accompanied by some of these preparation questions. And then I really look forward to seeing you in Rotterdam, and then we can continue the conversation and the coaching. Great.
Great. Thank
Same
you.
here, looking
Thank you.
forward.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oké, Ferdinand, dankjewel.
Yes.
Het is wel even wat informatie voor ze om te verstouwen.
Ja, dat klopt.
En weet niet, sorry, ik zal eventjes de boel afzetten. Stop de recording.